real freedom is without conditions. There shouldn't be a condition that is need to be met for us to find that internal freedom. That real freedom does come from within. And that's where you have people like Viktor Frankl, who was living in the internment camps during World War II, and talk about oppression, yet he found his meaning. He found his freedom in the deep horrors of that experience. So it's like going back to this kind of Buddhist way of thinking. It's like if we're always having an attachment to how things need to be this way or that way, even like, is it about me feeling happy? Is that what freedom is? An internal state that I'm attached to, or an external condition that I'm attached to? It's not really freedom then.
True freedom comes from within.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Sovereign States of Mind podcast, where we explore what it means to reclaim authority over our own lives. My name is Jordan Herbs, and I'm excited to have you along for the ride. I believe developing our own independent ways of thinking and being in this life is the first step to exploring the potential experience we can have during our short time on this earth. My intention with this podcast is to have the conversations that help you realize that true freedom comes from within. For your convenience, this podcast is available on all major podcasting platforms, so head over to your favorite app and give us a subscribe and follow there, and you can be notified when there's new episodes. We also appreciate nice reviews if you like what you hear. And sovereignstatesofmind.com offers an option to be notified by email when there is a new episode, or even if you're interested in the content but not quite sure you have the time to invest in listening to an hour-long conversation, we do sum up the episodes pretty in-depth in that weekly email. So that's at sovereignstatesofmind.com. Just pop in your email. We'll only use that email to send you updates from what's going on with this show. So without further ado, let's get into this episode.
Sovereign states of mind.
I think a lot of channeling creativity, if I'm going to be honest, has a lot to do for me with getting to the place where I'm prepared enough to channel. Like I can listen and tune in. And usually that requires me to not do certain things, not get distracted, not get into patterns that don't really help me out. And if I'm in that place where I'm not trying to get hits from social media or sugar or staying up late at night, well, actually, certain times it's favorable. But if I like take time to just hang out in nature, I take away a lot of my blocks, and I'm just left with myself. And when I'm just me, I notice that I'm ready to go. I'm ready to learn. I'm ready to dive in deep. I'm ready in so many different ways to handle whatever the next step is. And I think creativity and learning are kind of hand in hand. I think creativity is a special type of learning where you're learning from a little bit from the other world, a little bit from all your past, a little bit from your environment. And you're just this focus point, this little funnel on this green earth to just bring all these energies together into your work. I think it's a lot of it for me has to do with getting out of my own way, out of the way of everything.
Huge. Yeah. And it's almost like this separation of who am I? Because there's the I that creates, and then there's the I that gets distracted.
Yes. Yes.
There's a sense to me of connecting the dots. Like we have these just like neurons spread up across our brain. The more connections we have, the more we can understand it. So there's a certain amount of, we can explore creativity by learning more things, and then we can expand upon those dots of connection. There's also the danger of becoming too rigid and too much in a groove that you can't get out of. This is the education, this is the way it is, this is all the information, and there's nothing beyond that. So creativity, a lot of our creativity in the scientific world is trial and error. We do things, we fail, and we're like, oh, this is how we do it.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting how so many mistakes are viewed as like creative genius, but it's just connecting the dots in a sense.
It's also interesting how we like create programming around failures. Even though that's like the ultimate, from this perspective, it's the ultimate creative aspiration.
Yeah.
Is to fail because you're journeying into the unknown.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of my things, even culinary world, you know, so I'm like making my mushroom tinctures. Well, I cooked this mushroom too long and it was normally like a conch that you can't eat. Well, suddenly it became like edible. It's like, oh, now I got mushroom jerky that nobody's ever made before. Cool. So it looks creative, but it's just playing around with the elements and having that space to be able to do that, to be able to play around with the elements. And then it is channeling something through you. At the same time, it's oftentimes based upon our points of connection of information and just like all the famous scientists and people, whatever they're doing, they're going in their own route, learning all their stuff. And then that aha moment where they can skip like what's known into that creative potential and then do the tests, you know, to test the hypothesis. And there's truth to it. So it's a lot of persistence in creativity. Just being present as much as possible.
I'd say being present and being open. That's what I'm really like reflecting on as I listen to both of you and I think about my own experiences. And sometimes creativity is so in the mind for me, and I'm a writer and my background in psychology, like there's a lot of focus on analysis and thinking and writing and creativity with words. And also there's times with singing where it's really about like no mind, and really like if I'm channeling and sound healing, getting the mind out of the picture, so I'm just in this energy. But either way, it's like an openness that is needed to allow whatever creativity there is to come through. And I hear that too with what you're saying about science. Had me thinking about like finding LSD, right? Like that was like a mistake. That was kind of a failure, but like also it required this openness for him to be like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try it. Right? I'm going to try this fungus and see what happens. And wow, he found out, you know? And so, and then all the people that have journeyed with LSD since then, I mean, that's one of the huge benefits of creativity that it brings is the openness of mind, the releasing of mind. You know, I find like getting into dance is such a powerful way for me to get into a creative space. And part of that is because I'm getting deep in my body, deep in my heart, deep in my energy, and out of my mind.
That's it. And for me, that's what my answer is the body. The body is how I channel my creativity. Every day I have some sort of a yoga practice. I used to be a weightlifter. I used to like quantifying the progress. And to an extent, maybe I still would because I haven't done it in a long time. But I always know like I'm ready for the day, a day where I'm free to be myself, right? And create and explore and make mistakes. Maybe that's not every day because there's like work to be done or something like that. But once I hit this, they call it samadhi. Once I hit just this pure relaxation of just like, I can let go of my mind. I can just be me. And then suddenly my body feels free, not just physically and like my spine feels open, but things just flow. And I can talk and I can draw and I can move, and whatever the creativity wants to manifest as, it comes out, and it's just like a free flowing process. So for me, it's definitely the body. Tune into the body, and the body is the creativity. I mean, that's how we create, is with the body. That's the tool. That's the interface for reality.
Yeah, I think we get blocked off by just the mundaneness of life, and that in itself, just kind of removing that burden allows the creativity to flow. And you know, our civilization kind of naturally drives it out of us with the 9-to-5 workday and having to do so much. It's the kind of the byproduct of civilization, lack of creativity. And as soon as we can kind of get away from that a little bit, the juices again just start flowing. So it's something in my life where I've had the ability to just get up and travel and move a lot. And so that's actually helped shake up my creative process quite a bit. Just being able to get out of the mundane aspects of regular living, just go somewhere else, the juices naturally start flowing. And for me, that's always been really inspiring.
Does that relate to personal sovereignty?
Absolutely. You know, it all relates to awareness, and it's like the root of sovereignty is the root of our own awareness, and what do we see, and what do we see our place in this world relative to everything else, and that's the knowing thyself thing. And so being able to travel in the way I did, a lot of hitchhiking around, makes you think of that Janis Joplin song, "Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose." And I don't think I ever really understood it until I was hitchhiking on the road with nothing. And I was like, okay, so, the less you have, the less you have obligations to take care of, in a sense. And the more you get to reflect on who you are and yourself. And that was a really nice thing about traveling too, because there's lots of in-between time. So you have like this reflection time. You got time to pick up a book in those days, and read something in between. And this kind of continual process, this is something I told a lot of people over the years: travel, read, reflect, travel, read, and reflect. And you kind of get a lot of different perspectives. In real life, you get like, reading in a book isn't the actual experience of it. So you can't kind of quantify it the same way as you do in real life when you get out there and you experience things. So those things to me all kind of relate together. Bob Marley said, if you're not happy, travel wide. So.
Could I ask you guys to take that mic out and just hold it, pass it back and forth? Because I'm looking at the audio levels up there, and one day I'll have a producer in here that can take care of this, but I'm hosting, producing, and I see, the audio is not optimal here.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember I've been writing a little memoir about it in this book I'm working on about my time hitchhiking aimlessly through Europe. And I had a vague destination. I had friends to see, but just the act of letting go. I left my laptop with a friend, and then I just left. And I had my accordion and a backpack, and I just hitchhiked for 2.5, 3 months. And I never knew I was going to sleep that night. I never knew what was going to happen. I wrote so much in my journal and diary. I learned so much about myself. I ended up at a rainbow gathering, like the continental group, and changed my life, catalyst for everything. And that was all just because I was hitchhiking aimlessly without a plan. And you're more open to connecting with people. And that I feel is when you're that free. I don't know how else to experience that kind of freedom, because I know exactly what you're talking about, Arrow, and I feel it. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. It is just the complete freedom. It's just hitchhiking without a destination, just knowing that you're in the travel process.
Yeah, for sure. There's a time where me and 3 other buddies, we bicycled. We did a bicycle tour from New York to Chicago. They kept going, but it was that it hit me one time when Leonid Danis there. I just really, really appreciate him. So shout out Leonid. He just said, yeah, I'm gonna work on my bike. And he took an hour to work on his bike. And I was like, oh, there's nowhere to go. It's here and now. And the best part of that bicycle tour was the buddies I bike rode with. But here's the catch. Every single town we went to, we were like magnets. All of a sudden, people wanted to house us. They wanted to feed us. There's a tornado watch coming in, and this mom in her son's pickup truck, right? It was blasting Jay-Z because she didn't understand how to work the dials, right? So it's this Midwestern town. She's blasting Big Pimpin', and she's like, come on, boys. And you can see the super dark clouds all over. And it's it just hit me. There is something about the state of just pure freedom, that openness, that just super deliciously in touch with life, right? And
I think it's the ultimate embodiment of creativity, being free in that regard.
You love it.
I don't see how else you can be that free, how you can embody freedom like that state where I can go anywhere I want. I have nowhere to be.
Yeah.
And I know I'll be fully taken care of with food, with shelter, with whatever comes my way.
Yeah.
And it tests you as well.
I'm going to challenge you, Jordan. I'm going to say it's also the opposite. When you I've experienced it when I've fully focused and did nothing else for 4 weeks into 6 weeks into 8 weeks, working like 16, 18-hour days. Slow and chill the whole time. I just loved it. I just did nothing but work. I was in a state of just pure focus, ridding myself of anything else, only like responsibilities. And I hit the state. It's like gold dropping from the heavens onto your heart, and it's just moving right through you. And everything you touch is so much more precious. There's something about a mindset of just very long, deep focus on something that I wish everyone to experience.
Loud and clear.
But it's almost like it's the extremes, right? It's either all in or just completely nothing that has this super magical power.
Maybe it's two sides of the same coin. And what I was referencing is like maybe the physical freedom of like just being a physical being and moving. Whereas if you're experiencing the opposite of physical freedom, then you're experiencing the freedom that comes from within, which is what the slogan of this show is. So yeah, you're right. You caught me there. But literally that time in my life is what catalyzed me into realizing that I can be sovereign over my time, over everything. It's all just how I decide to go about it. And that's why I'm passionate about hitchhiking. Yeah. Without a destination and not knowing where you're going to sleep. My mom always was like, Jordan, like, how long are you going to do this for?
I'm curious what Alicia has to say.
Yeah, I can't help but think about how you guys are talking about hitchhiking. And as a female bodied person, that would be a very different experience for me, and so I'm also just thinking about how there's so many people in the world that don't have the access to that level of diving into a comfort of having an untethered life. For a variety of reasons, even if people have kids or if they've experienced intense trauma, if they have a disability, there's lots of reasons why they couldn't do that. But does that mean they can't experience a higher form of freedom? And I think that's where we're getting to what you're talking about, that essentially real freedom is without conditions. There shouldn't be a condition that is need to be met for us to find that internal freedom. That real freedom does come from within. And that's where you have people like Viktor Frankl, who was living in the internment camps during World War II, and talk about oppression, yet he found his meaning. He found his freedom in the deep horrors of that experience. So it's like going back to this kind of Buddhist way of thinking. It's like if we're always having an attachment to how things need to be this way or that way, even like, is it about me feeling happy? Is that what freedom is? An internal state that I'm attached to, or an external condition that I'm attached to? It's not really freedom then. Now, I'm not saying I have that all figured out, but that's what makes sense to me,
It makes a lot of sense the way you put it that way. Real quick, I just want to say I did meet many solo female-bodied travelers in my time, and they kick ass. I remember, I forget her name, but she had a blog. She hitchhiked from London down to South Africa alone. Wow. And had a blog about it. And so, there's risks everywhere for sure. But there's definitely people out there doing like incredible things.
I know someone personally who lived like deep off grid in Kauai as a woman, like living naked with like other men. Like we were to hike days to get to this whole area and did that for years. So I know it happens. For sure. All kinds of people. But yeah, just bringing in that bigger picture too, that for many different reasons, that's not going to be a path for everyone.
I've been like learning to market myself on Twitter, or like just try to like start like building an audience, right? Like, what do I have to say? And one of the things you do is you go into other big Twitter accounts and you see their posts and you try to get an early comment in, provide value to the thread. So what I find myself doing is all these like holistic psychologists with thousands and thousands of followers, I'll just throw in a comment about, I don't know, boundaries or something that has to do with how I see things with sovereignty. And then like people will start following me because that's like along the lines of why they're following that person. But I find that trauma healing seems to be a huge intersection, a cross section of a lot of this sovereignty minded individuals or people on that journey. And I guess people like us standing here where we have a definition in our head and it's a practice, but the healing of trauma. I mean, I would argue that hitchhiking session for me is what healed a lot of trauma. Yeah. Just to be able to jump in, like trauma from having to go to fucking school every day, and then work and like losing however many years of my life I think that's pretty traumatizing.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, for sure.
I got to say something about that. Yeah. So as a mental health therapist and a trauma specialist, I do want to just say that sometimes like in the society, there's such a focus on trauma now. Like you said, it's blowing up. Like everyone's talking about trauma.
Is it? Oh,
people all over the place be talking about trauma. Gen Z, they're like trauma.
Oh, I thought it was just because we lived here.
I think, we live in a particular culture here that has maybe like a heightened perspective on it too, but it's a growing awareness within the collective around trauma. And sometimes people are saying like that was so traumatic, but really like the core definition of trauma is that there's some kind of threat to your life, to your existence. And so I feel you, like the experience, the hardship of like being stuck in this like grind in this like mechanized society of like having to work and having to go to school. Like that is something that kills our soul. But I wouldn't necessarily say it's trauma in terms of the way that it impacts the nervous system, the brain, the memory, the psychology, and spirit.
Okay, what about this? High school football coaches. When, before you're 14, whatever it is, and you go to high school football, when did anyone ever have permission to yell at you like you were less than a fucking bug? I remember our coaches yelling at us like we were worthless humans. And yeah, I hear you. It's not traumatizing in the true sense of the word, but it creates some kind of conditioning from then on out.
That I would say could be what we call like a little T trauma, where it's like a verbal abuse and it's an emotional trauma. And that does have a lasting impact because it's a threat to our safety of belonging at that level. And that is deep within our whole makeup as spiritual beings, but also as human beings, as mammalian beings. We need to belong. So threats to that count. That's a little T trauma.
I would argue that most of the birthing process and medical system inflicts gross amounts of trauma that we pretty much all have, unless you had a perfect in utero and a, home birth, something like that. I think that most people have trauma inflicted on them way beyond their even awareness.
I have a different theory on that. Just something that I've thought over the years since we had our first child. I think it doesn't matter how your birth was. It's traumatic coming out of the womb.
Yeah.
You're going from everything, nothing all at once to holy shit, I'm in a body.
Yeah.
Totally.
Now for the mother is a different story.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of research on that showing Stan Groff in particular with the holotrophic breath work showing how a lot of our traumas are created at those times, and even being able to trace weird fetishes that people have to, like, you're going down the birth canal and there's shit all over, and now they're like have this weird shit fetish or something like that. There's been a lot of things like that that just show where people got these weird things that we didn't really come to terms with. And it is all about trauma. It all is. It's how we create everything we want to do. We want to be what we love, be close to what we love, and we want to push away that which, makes us uneasy. So that kind of creates our whole life and whatever experiences we had as a child. And at the same time, two people can experience much of the exact same thing, but they'll respond to it differently. Yeah. So some people will get all hung up on all their trauma and just say, oh, this is me. It's always going to be me. I'm never going to be able to break away from this. Other people are going to search out ways of escaping that. And certainly for me, hitchhiking was a part of that too. For me, it was very much a visceral response to seeing the pyramid scheme going on in society, and the powers that be that were manipulating so much. And so being able to break away from that and travel around and not pay taxes for 20 years was like the greatest thing that, healed my soul. Not everybody needs to do that. But like, to me, to be able to escape that is like, I needed that, and some people need to feel that freedom more than others. being out here, this is what I needed right now, being out in this island. At the same time, if I was stuck somewhere else, I would either have to find that freedom from within, whatever circumstances I'm going through, or, people get depressed and slowly kill themselves one way or another.
I got a question. So what we're circling around it. I really like where we're going, but what is the relationship with, I'm going to call it blocks and creativity? Like, what are your ways of either transforming, going into it, handling the experience of feeling super blocked? I'm so curious. What are you guys do? Jordan, do you want to start first?
I can start first.
Yeah.
I love having Stefano here because it kind of like guides us through. I'm like, all right, sweet. Blocks. My first go-to is a yoga practice. I can't meditate before yoga.
Back in the body.
Back to the body. Yeah, let's simplify it. Back to the body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Hey. Great. Thank you.
100%. It's about getting back in the body. That's what I find too, personally. And all the research, again, on trauma talks about that too, about the importance of getting back in the body if we want to change what's happening for us. And like blocks tend to be mental would be something I would put out there. I'd be curious to hear what else you might say, but maybe that's where we like readily experience them. So body, 100%.
Yeah, a similar vein. Me getting out into nature always does it, because it is so much a mental thing. My brain's stuck on repeat. I can't let go of something, but just moving the body, getting a little bit of physical, but also immersing myself in nature for sure. It's doing something different. I don't know if any of you guys know about Gurdjieff, Georgios Ivanovich Gurdjieff. He's one of my favorite people in history. But he came up with, he brought the Enneagram back to mainstream society, and the fourth way is a lot of his teachings. But he had these kind of mystery schools all over, from Russia all the way to Morocco, always teaching people Sufi dances and stuff like that. And a big part of it was the body and was moving the body. And he said, we do these very rigid things every day. We do the same thing. We take the same way to work. We walk the same path. We eat the same foods. How do we expect to be creative when we're doing the same things every single day?
Yeah.
So like, just take a different way to work sometime. Just like hold things differently. And so they had a lot of focus on doing like weird body movements that you wouldn't really get used to. You wouldn't do it normally. You move like your right hand and leg at the same time up and down. It's not like a motion we normally move. So he had all these ways of breaking people free of this rigid thinking, these rigid motions by group movement. And so that was a really powerful thing that I've seen helps people.
I have something to add as well. Two things. One is along the lines of movement is breath work. And so like Osho, Bhagwan stuff, it was like, do all this heavy breath of fire. And then you're essentially like in a hallucination state of catharsis, moving and letting out all this stuff from your body. And it feels really good after you sink into just like this deep relaxation. The second thing.
Do you do those by yourself?
Yeah. Yeah.
You literally
I used to share them. I used to have my own, like, yeah.
You're all about it.
Oh, I had a phase. Oh, my parent, my family, my friends, everyone was like, Jordan. Because it was like this spiritual orgasm stuff. It was like, I was really into it. And, you could do it on your own in the bedroom and prop your heart open. You do the breath work. You dance around for a bit. Yeah, I had it down to a T. But, and the second thing, it's on a bigger scale of blockages, not like a day-to-day, but you're like, okay, this phase of my life, feeling like it's over, it's stagnating, but like, how do I move forward, right? And I think a lot of times that will come naturally if you're open, your creative channels are open just with the seasons, it'll start to flow into new phases. But learning new skills alongside a new way of moving your body, because this will make new neural pathways. I don't know exactly how to talk about the scientific part of it, but it's true because I've tried it. I've done it so many times. And I take that from Cameron Shane and the Budokan practice.
Okay.
Is when we did that teacher training, you're learning how to spin your body in all these new ways. And it's really therapeutic for your spine. But alongside that happening is your brain is learning what is it called? The neuromuscular connection. Yeah. That relationship is being refined. So while you're doing that physical practice, learn new philosophies, learn new skills, whatever it is, and that helps, I guess, integrate them into your being.
Okay, very good. That's helping me remember. Like I would do that all the time as a kid, right? It's like just I could do it like this, hanging out at the supermarket online, and just like taking my time to only move one side of my body,
Undulate your
and like my mom feeling like a little embarrassed, but he's just a kid, and I'm just gonna look the other way.
I was just jumping into the squares of the tile.
Oh yeah.
Supermarket.
Oh yeah. Wow. Everyone's lighting up. So there's also like a relationship with childhood. Yeah. Creativity, play, movement. On the neuromuscular movement, it's just you're repeating a certain movement over and over again. You're doing it in a group.
Well, this was like a Zoom teacher training because it was during the lockdown, so I was all
okay.
alone.
Yeah, because I'm also like the attention and environment, I think, is also another thing. And I get snapshots, right? The hitchhiking wide open by yourself, but also in full exposure. Full exposure. And then like times in nature, just it could be in solitude usually.
Yeah. It needed to be.
Yeah. And I hear you going back into your body. You're doing certain practices. Is it Alicia or Alicia?
Alicia.
Alicia, thank you.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
Going back into my body, that could look like yoga. That could look like stretching. That could look like being in nature. I do feel like just being bare feet on the ground, connecting with nature is a huge resource for getting me to be in my body. Dance, though, is also a really big one.
Yeah.
Going on walks, playing with my dog, connecting with my dog and he's so in his body, right? So being in my body with him in his body. These are some of my go-tos.
Okay, cool. And in dance, being with your dog, there's a presence and another awareness that you're exposing your mind to, right? Because usually creative practices, I don't do them around people. There's too much of my mind that feels vulnerable. My practices are usually in the quietness of night, going in. So yeah, I will play with attention. I will put myself in situations that are kind of uncomfortable, but really interesting stuff. Body, new movement, new patterns, dance, letting go, around people, in nature, reconstituting something deep within in a timeless place.
Let's expand on that a little bit. Let's add to that. First off, music, especially playing guitar. Yeah. Accordion was a little tough for me, but you're a full band and you're standing up. It's like a full body instrument. Guitar, you're a little more intimate with the actual like vibrations of the music because your fingers touching the strings. But playing guitar and singing, even if it's gibberish, powerful for coming back to your body. You mentioned your dog, kids, just playing with my little ones, especially when I'm a little stoned. I feel like I'm really tuning into their wavelength of playing and being, and it like blows over me, just like approaching this little tiny being that my partner and I created. And like when I'm in my body, I recognize them for like just the joy, the abundance of joy that they are, and love that they just are. Yet when I'm more in my mind, maybe stressed out, anxious, I got things on, to do, then they slowly become, I still love them. I still, to an extent, have patience with them, but they're suddenly like not these little angels. They're just these responsibilities. And so I find that even just how the presence I have to show up to my family, which is like right there. And I'm not saying like yelling at them and being an asshole if I'm not in my body, but just like seeing them for what they are, which are these just divine little creatures sent to teach me something and teach me responsibility in brand new ways. Yeah. So these are two things I would add to that list. I had something to expound upon, but it's gone now.
going into the music, drum circles for me in so many ways, whether you're playing or not. If you're playing, you're much more in the rhythm. It's definitely affecting the brain heart connection. It's very primal. And the other interesting thing I note about it is that there are like so many conflicts out there in the world. And most of the time at the drum circle, there's all this cohesion amongst so many people. And it's so amazing to see how well we can work together, you know, when we're dealing with other conflicts in our lives. So that's a really kind of necessary part of the drum circles. It shows like the social healing possible and the cooperation that we can all put together on and make amazing music together.
So real quick, I just want to announce that video clips and highlights from this podcast and all the other ones are hosted on the Family in Paradise YouTube channel. That's a YouTube channel where my family and I share our homesteading adventures. I figured it was a good place to pop these videos in just in case you stumble about them. Along with that, what we learned from this podcast, we're excited to have you along for the ride as we learn and discover more about the world's workings and how we can gain more independence. Your tips and donations are appreciated to help keep this show going. There are links in the episode notes. Leaving a review on your favorite podcast directory is a great way to show some love. You can also get email updates every time there's a new episode or even a blog post, because we might start a blog soon. sovereignstatesofmind.com. You can sign up. It's free. You can also sign up as a patron for a few dollars a month to help to support the show. That's really appreciated. And yeah, this is a community endeavor. I just want to say from a personal note, a little vulnerability update that like my big journey in this year, 2023, has been reclaiming authority over what I do with my time for money.
Yeah.
And I have always kind of played in and out of that, but I never had any kind of stable business or revenue. I just kind of, you know, played with magic and I would, you know, the clients would come along at the right time. The money would come in when I needed it. But this year I decided I really want to start a business that is just me, and then it can support me and my family. And there's really no other path. We talked about last week how I was applying for jobs to produce podcasts. I was applying for jobs because I have a lot of skills, couldn't find one. There was probably a lot of subconscious self-sabotage because I didn't want one. But I was like, well, I got to just surrender to what I got to do to feed my family. Couldn't find the job. So finally I was like, okay, if I'm going to eventually sell my services to clients, I should just prove that I know what I'm doing and make a project. So I started out with a few different projects. This podcast is the one that seems to be gaining the most momentum. It's making me feeling the most fulfilled doing. And it's really all thanks to everyone listening to this right now. You guys in here, all of you, like I have always had self-esteem things going on in the background and confidence and like putting my face out there. I was telling you yesterday, I'm not much for self-promoting. I don't like promoting things with my face on it. I never have. I'm working on that. So just everyone supporting the show in the way you have. 3 guests here today, excited to talk. I'm feeling really honored and affirmed and acknowledged. Thank you. That's my moment of vulnerability.
Thank you.
And there's been some other affirmations which we'll get to in a little bit. But first, I want to bridge this channeling creativity talk. We've covered we get into the body, like we channel creativity, we go to nature, we clear our mind. So I have 3 topics here. The first one is self-satisfaction. How do we channel creativity towards contentedness of being? The second one is money. How do we channel creativity towards money? Revenue, income, whatever you want to call it, that energy of money. And the third is relationships. I mentioned earlier with my kids that when I can be in my body and I am in that creative state, I can be pure in those relationships so close to me. So let's start with self-satisfaction. Arrow. How does channeling creativity contribute to your feelings of knowing your life has purpose?
Well, of all the things that I've done or created in my life, I would say my most valuable possessions to me are my notebooks that I've written and journaled about myself, because there's nothing else that really comes close to having the same amount of value as like discovering yourself. And not only that, but being able to go back through time and like look at your process. So like there's a million possessions that have passed through my hands, but the only thing that really I feel has value are the art I've created, and that would be my writings would be a big part of that. So that's the most satisfying, thing that I've been able to manifest so far. So
that's taking time to reflect on and putting energy into your own story and getting it down on paper, and also bringing meaning to it. Yeah.
Long term, it's always been in the back of my head to, turn some of it into books or literature or something like that. But it's just been so nourishing for me to be able to get it down and to write it down. And as somebody who's sometimes been kind of shut down, with my own words, being able to talk to people, and based upon life I grew up on, people didn't talk, so I didn't learn how to talk, and I had to write stuff down to people. So that's one of the reasons it's also had so much value to me specifically. But yeah, just being able to figure out ways to access me, like what am I feeling? And sometimes I would say probably a lot of men in American society suffer from that more, of not being able to get into their feelings or know what's going on, and just kind of reacting and seeing what you do with those reactions and how it can affect the world around you, but not knowing what, where you're coming from is going to make you be walking blindly through life. So being able to express those things and seeing those things and seeing the art, the creative potential inside of us, and seeing what we can do with it is inspiring for everybody, and for the people in our lives, but most importantly for ourselves.
Hear, hear.
Well, I guess I'll say that with self-satisfaction and creativity, if I don't like it, then fuck it.
Nice.
I love the art that I create. And when I create some music or a song or a video or a writing, and I find myself wanting to go back and continue to experience it, watch it, listen to it again and again. And then I'm just oh, I love it. Or I created an art piece and I'm gazing at it. That's when I know I'm in the sweet spot. If I'm not enjoying the art that I create, then what's the point? If I'm creating for someone else to enjoy it, but I don't enjoy it, that energy is alive in it. And, I am the paintbrush, right? That the creative essence of the divine is working through me to paint something. And if I'm not enjoying the product that's coming through me, then I'm not really allowing myself to be that paintbrush. So it should be this kind of self-pleasure experience in a way, to be able to create and love what you create. If other people like it, that's great, but that's a bonus. And I find that the more that I create what I love, other people do love it. And like I said, that's a bonus.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that you're just loving what you're creating, that you're having this very special process happening for you as it's unfolding in your experience. Yeah. That you feel connected to it. Am I hearing you clearly?
Yeah. I would say connected is a good word. Yeah. Feeling connected to myself, feeling connected to that kind of, that essence of creativity that is non-local, non-personal, that moves through me, and feeling connected to the creation itself. Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's hear it, Stefano.
For me. Okay. Self-satisfaction through creativity.
Through channeling,
channeling creativity. Okay. So there's something about being prolific and just having a giant stack. I think I was talking to you about before. That's cool. However, if we're talking specifically about creativity and self-satisfaction with creativity, it just has to do with taking time to celebrate just for celebration's sake. Literally going out in nature. I usually do it on the lava, and I just celebrate. I make as much noise for my inner Stefano as much as possible. And I just did it. I stepped into something day after day, and I just go out there. I give it. I do like this like dancing beatbox celebration thing, right? In the sun and the heat and the lava, and I just bask into just this moment where it's all for you, Stefano. You get to do whatever you want. And just really taking time out for that. If I don't take time to celebrate, it won't feel like I ever finish anything. I really noticed that about me. It's like, it's something that I actually hunger for. A lot of my actions I take is really for that moment of celebration. And I just skip it so many times, right? Just nothing. And I just go on to the next thing. And if I really want to take time to feel fulfilled, even in my failures, right? Even in the prolific quantity of failures, I just take time, right? It can be anywhere from like 5 minutes to 40 minutes. Anytime within there, I'm just out there, just celebrating myself. I don't need a reason, just being alive.
Amen. Yeah. That's why I love the beach we live nearby. It's clothing optional. And I think legally it was actually designated as a clothing optional beach. And the only reason people get in trouble when the cops decide to come gang up on the hippies is it's only if someone's offended. Are you not allowed to be naked? If someone's offended by you being naked.
Interesting.
So if someone's own shame projects out, like, you're not allowed to be naked. But anyway, I'm there naked all the time, at least once a day. When I get there early enough in the morning, it's all just other local people in the neighborhood like me who just want to be naked and celebrate. Just be in that water and like just be free to be naked in the water. I dance around on the sand. I do yoga. I have a whole jungle animal locomotion workout I do. And it took a long time to feel comfortable doing that, especially in a place like this, like where everyone accepts you. Essentially, no one's ever come up to me and said, "Hey, put some pants on." I don't like seeing you wave your butt everywhere in your yoga. No, in fact, it's like kind of the opposite. People are like, "Oh, hey, cool. I love what you're doing." But I had a tremendous amount of shame that I carried with me until I finally I dealt with it. I did the work, and now I'm comfortable pretty much at any time. If I'm ever feeling like I don't feel like I'm strong enough to deal with other people's shame right now, like because the tourists are here or something, then sometimes I'll wear shorts and I'll enjoy it just as much. But yeah, I think the self-satisfaction for me is being able to be pure in my body, just like naked in my birthday suit, doing what my body wants to do in the sun, in the water, and another ultimate channeling of creativity just through the body with no purpose. It's like catharsis. I mean, the purpose is just to do it and to be there with it. So the next thing is money, channeling creativity to money. Would anyone like to start on that? Does anyone have any things that come to mind right away? So I'll take it. As I've announced last week, and we talked about it for the second half of the podcast, some huge inspiration channeled through me in the last couple weeks. And that is the first thing ever is like a product with my face on it and like something I own, something that like on the sign up form, it's like, how did you hear about this? And one of the options is Jordan wouldn't shut up about it. Like, because
I'm going to click that box.
That's the right box to click. Probably. I don't know if anyone signs up and doesn't click that box, I'll be stoked but it's basically a 4-week session, like a mastermind for figuring out what your personal brand is, how it needs to be packaged to share the message you want to share and convert audience into clients, turn it into a business. I always had so much shame and I guess ethical quandaries regarding making money in this world. I stayed away from, like you, during my hitchhiking time. I was like, I don't want to do anything with money. It's war, it's taxes, it's just everything that I'm not into about the world. So I chose to be broke instead, discovered freedom, learned about Bitcoin, realized, okay, there's ways you can have money that's not all corrupted, learned about what capitalism and the free market really means. It's about providing value to others. That's all it is. Yeah. Make something that other people want and give it to them. and then you charge for it. And it's a beautiful thing. Everything's happy. Do you know where the word pay comes from?
No.
It comes from the Latin root of peace. It's what creates peace between two people. It's like in the transaction. So it's like this really sacred thing for our society that no one really thinks about. Yeah. For me, it's something I've thought about for a long time because I could never figure out how to start a business or do anything because I wanted anything I shared to be from my heart. I wanted it to be from my purest creativity. And I knew that was the most valuable thing I had to offer. All the other things I tried to do were half-assed attempts. So in the last week, 2 weeks, I've figured out what it is that I've learned from all my failures, lots of years of failures by trying to create something online, and figured out a formula for packaging it and how to share it with others. And I'm super excited to share it with others. Nick is going to be part of it. Stefano is going to be a part of it. If you're interested in being part of it, check out creatorsovereignty.com. The website is currently down if you're listening to the live stream, but I'll have it fixed by the time it goes up. You could also message me privately and I'll give you the link, but it'll explain it. If you feel like you're in a stage where you have everything and everything's ready, but the pieces just aren't together and you're trying to figure out what that friction is and the resistance, this is the program that I use myself for getting through the resistance to channel the pure creativity into something that can be a business endeavor. And this is my first one. So it's kind of like a meta project because it is a product, but it's also me exploring this line of channeling creativity towards money, towards that money energy, whatever we want to call it. So that's what I share here with, that's what I would say first thing is when you build a brand correctly that's based on you, your face, your heart, then you can channel your purest creativity into money. And that for me is my contribution to that part of the conversation.
Well, I might have to talk to you more about this later.
Yeah.
Yeah. My journey with money is somewhat similar where I remember like throwing money away. Like I didn't want anything to do with it. I don't need it. And the universe always provided for me and I was fine. And I was able to either get stuff or people gave me stuff. And it was really magical the way it all worked out. I've carried this mentality probably a little bit too long though. And I've been realizing now how it affects my relationships, affects people around me. And also feel like I have so much to offer. There's no reason the energy that I put out shouldn't have something coming back. So the ways I've made money in life, pretty much cannabis and mushrooms have supported me this far.
Plant allies.
Yeah. So I was able to, I felt like growing cannabis was actually very creative in a lot of ways. And learning to work with the garden and everything like that. It actually felt like there was a lot of room for learning things and the creative potential. But due to the way civilization works and cops and thieves and stuff like that, it doesn't always work out. So I never really made the money I thought I was going to. And I kind of just said, oh, it doesn't matter. Really, it's only in the last few months this year where I'm like, you know what? I should really develop a new relationship with money, And so I've been working on that and looking at the mentalities in me that have squandered certain creative potential, and also looking for ways that I can't remember exactly, but it's some kind of like Japanese thing where it's like the Venn diagram overlap of like kind of where your interests are.
Ikigai.
It's like there's like 3 overlapping.
I think it's 4.
It's
like vocation, career, passion, and one other one.
Maybe service, like how what people want.
Yeah.
Producer, pull that up.
So I think I finally found that for myself, and it's going to be making compost tea. So working with microbes and fine tuning different kinds of recipes and stuff like that, where it's still feels very true. Like I'm not like providing crap services or doing junk stuff or just working for the man or something like that. I'm actually able to bring something into the world that not really many people are doing. It's exciting to me and it's helping and healing. So that's very exciting to have found something just recently where I feel like it can have that kind of value where I'm getting paid, but also people feel like it has a lot of value when their food production blossoms. So,
and it's a win-win for everyone.
yes.
The Japanese concept ikigai means a reason for being. It's the intersection of what we love, what the world needs, what we can be paid for, and what we're good at.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It took me 43 years to figure that out.
I'm at 35 years. Yeah. Yeah, not far behind you.
Would you like to go?
Go ahead.
Okay, so creative process around money is just
To channel it into that.
yeah. Using creativity to channel into money. It's looking at myself in the mirror and deciding. It's like we're gonna make this much money this month. And then just like, okay, why are you gonna do that? Well, I want this in my life. I want this in my life. And it's like, oh yeah, I really want this in my life and this in my life. Okay, we're gonna make this much money this month, and I really want this in my life and this in my life. Okay, where are we? Where we gotta go? And then coming up with life plans, right? Like, this is the way I want to live my life energy. It would be so cool if I could live my life's energy to go through this whole special roller coaster, and then it ends with this. This is my choice. I want to make this much money this month because I want this and I want this. And I think that is like one of the major keys for stepping into inner sovereignty is coming up with those plans. And it takes a lot of self-trust. It takes so much self-trust and energy. And if I'm not in a creative state, I can't do it. I can't do it. I gotta dance. I gotta move my body. I gotta get back to nature because it's like literally there's a steel plate preventing, or I just gotta sit with the steel plate for like 3 hours, 4 hours, and then it just explodes open, and I know exactly what to do.
Interesting.
So it's that's what it is. It is sitting down, getting real with myself, getting honest with myself. What do I want in my life? Why do I want it? And then crafting it with all the resources in my life, a plan. Now, plans are good up to a certain point. I also believe in scrumming, of like handling things on the fly as needs come up. But, making sure I'm able to decide between what is a distraction, what isn't, comes a lot with that. So, but that's really it. And I think if anybody's really trying to step into a higher sovereignty, that's really where it starts, is crafting your life out.
Strategizing.
Yeah. Using your heart to strategize. That's a special type of power for sure.
Yeah, I really hear that. And part of me is like, oh, because when we're talking about freedom, like one of the ways that I really like to experience freedom in my life is like to, get to like have spaciousness to like do what I want in the moment. And like that could look like this day or that day. And there's a certain level of like structuredness that I find I resist as much as in other ways I really like need it too. But I totally hear what you're saying. And for me, what that brings up is for myself, a pattern that I've recognized that I'm really willing to just like be creative and like put something out there and like see what happens. And as I like look back on my professional career, but also just my career as, a creative being, I guess you could say. And then those things definitely intertwine, I'm putting stuff out there. I'm taking risks. It doesn't always land in the way that I want it to, but I'm like continually in this process of trying. But the more that I've gotten really clear on my specific message, that I'm having more strategy. And I think that's really where the structure comes in for me around how I'm directing my creative energy and my creative expressions to really fuel a specific goal, and a specific goal for my work, and how that meets a specific goal for the change that I want to be a part of helping to create in the world. And as I'm doing that, the more and more I've been doing that over the last few years, the more I notice it creating a larger impact in the lives of the people I'm working with, and also feeding me more too. And I'm definitely still in a place where I'm working on that, and I'm being called to up level my offerings and to be offering higher level courses and things like that, rather than just focusing on one-on-one things that I've been doing for most of my career as a therapist and a healer. And that is requiring me to get a little more disciplined and a little more structured. And so I feel like there's a different Venn diagram where it's like just two circles, and it's discipline and
freedom.
Flow is
discipline and surrender.
And in the middle is flow. Yeah. Discipline, surrender, and flow. And I feel like that really encapsulates what it is to like have freedom and have creativity, and make that into something that is worthwhile and tangible in the world, that also feeds you monetarily.
That's what this.
I'd like to qualify something. There's such an important nuance between like coming up with a big to-do list for your month, and then being like clearly outcome oriented on something, especially around money, which usually it takes a little bit of will to really call in a number and shoot for it, which calls it discipline. But the other thing that I think a lot of my past lessons overlooked was emphasizing the development of why, because that why is like the emotional fuel. The emotional fuel that's going to help me get over the humps. It's the emotional fuel that's going to help me soften when I think it's asking me to harden. It's that emotional fuel that, is it's gonna help me cry into the growth that I need. And I will literally cry as I'm like washing dishes that I don't want to do, or whatever else, just like to internalize and teach my body that I'm like really present with it, which is a different type of discipline, because I'm literally teaching it like I'm with you and you matter, and I really want you to come with me while we go check this thing out. So it's that little shift, and it's that like those moments of surrender that bring dishwashing into like into a state of flow, because it turns every one of those fucking dishes turns into like, a meaningful thing for me to call in what I'm creating. And that's the fucking choice that hurts so much. It hurts so much, and I just welcome everyone into it. Like, choose it. Do whatever you got to do to come up with the emotional fuel and meaning in those super difficult moments, and touch the other side for sure.
So now I want to share another of the important affirmations for me in the last couple weeks on this podcast. This show is now, we have a sponsor. There is a sponsor now. And that is like the biggest thing for me with money, because suddenly I've been putting all this creative energy into this podcast for 13 episodes. And now suddenly someone wants to have their product mentioned. And it is the perfect product for this audience, I think. And it makes me feel like, okay, I'm doing something right. Like, it doesn't have to be a whole lot of money. That's not the point. The point is there's a flow now. There's a channel. There's a connection, momentum. There's a connection now between that money energy and my creative energy. All right, let's make it wider so more can flow through. So without further ado, this episode is brought to you by Kapi Hawaii. If you're anything like me, or anyone in this room probably, you see the value in entheogenic plant allies and nootropics in your everyday life because they help us remain aware of ourselves, focus on our goals, and tune into optimal creative states. This is why I'm super proud to announce the first sponsor to approach this show is a product line of Kapi Vine microdosing lozenges from Kapi Hawaii. Kapi is a vine that has had a relationship with humans for thousands of years. Hailing from the Amazon, this Kapi vine has been a supportive ally to humans in recognizing the fundamental sovereignty we have over our own consciousness. A few years ago, the Kapi vine played an important role in helping me become aware of my deep psychological tendency towards victimization in the face of hard times and the self-defeating mindsets that developed along with it over years and years. All that changed when I started working with the Kapi vine. I no longer fear taking responsibility and owning myself. These Kapi microdoses remind me every day of the self-growth I carry with me since those early ceremonies. They help me return to a state of basic self-connection. And it's very subtle, but it's very real. When I'm microdosing Kapi, the rough around the edges feels smoothed out. My unproductive cravings are silent, and I find myself acting from an integrated state of mindful awareness. This subtleness becomes profound with time. And I think the reason I wanted to read this ad after Stefano here is because that's what I was tuning into with what you're saying, is like doing the dishes there, is like anything you do, there's just like this, wow, I have a body. Like, wow, there's this awareness in me and everything I do. I'm a fully autonomous like creature in this reality. So whether I'm parenting or playing or working, the Kapi vine helps me better integrate all the growth happening in my life and everything I do. These Kapi lozenges are non-impairing, and you can stay completely functional. It is an MAOI, which means if you're on any medications such as SSRIs, it's very important to speak with your doctor or physician. So if you're on the path of uncovering and creating your best self, Kapi Vine is a powerful plant ally to have along with you. Check out kapihawaii.com. That's Kapi Hawaii. Hawaii is actually pronounced Hawaii by the native culture. Use promo code Jordan at kapihawaii.com for a special 15% off. That's CAAPIHAWAII.com. Promo code Jordan, like Michael, 15% off to get started on your journey with this powerful plant ally. How'd I do?
That's great. Thank you.
You wanted to get that product yet?
I actually have been wanting to try this, so now I have a promo code, so I'm gonna do it.
Hell yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, so the last bit was relational. Channeling creativity into the relational aspects of our lives. Now, I guess I was originally thinking when I wrote that relationships with our family, with people, but I suppose this could also mean our relationships with things. And what does it mean when we're embodying our highest creativity in things in our relating with the external world? Who's first?
So channeling our creativity in relating, whether that be
in relating with our, let's just say in relating with our external reality. How does creativity itself, we talked about the money aspect, we talked about the internal aspect. That's like the sovereignty type of thing. But what about with other people, with distractions, with blocks, with nature, with beautiful things?
I think you could actually say that creativity is the relationship. Like It is the mechanism of relating. Yeah, snaps on that. Deep. But really though, because the act of creativity is this like free flowing evolution between this point of consciousness and this other point of consciousness. So whether that's happening in an internal way or that is what's happening between us, like right now, like you have created this space and we're all just in the moment actively in our creativity with one another. And while this has this creative output of this podcast, it also is actively creating more relationships between all of us as we're getting to know each other and see each other. And for everyone that's listening, they're having this opportunity to receive this and maybe they're inspired by it, but it is like the essence of relationships. And you were talking about like the drum circle before, and the power of the cohesion, the coherence that comes when we're all in that frequency. You know, I would say that there's something really powerful about frequency. Well, there's a lot of really powerful things about frequency, but that creativity is also this like certain level of frequency. And that as that is being expressed within the field, that is helping to bring coherence between us. And so when we're in that flow in relationships, it's because we're in that coherent frequency. And that is a creative act and experience.
Wow. Beautiful.
Yeah. When you have multiple people working together, you get that sense of oneness, that you're one organism, all figuring it out at the same time, all communicating non-verbally even. And to be able to do, in a sense, you know, looking at it, it might be, again, just like a program, like synchronized swimming. But when people are all kind of doing it together, it actually becomes very liberating and very freeing. And being able to have creative response to situations, to people, to events happening, is very liberating as well. To be able to move this direction or that direction and not get stuck no matter what the world is bringing you. That's incredibly sovereign right there, just to be able to have that sense of being able to handle whatever's getting thrown at you.
Adaptation.
Yeah. And that gets back into like those rigid ways of thinking and rigid ways of moving. If we're just doing the same thing all the time and we get thrown something, we might not be able to solve the problem.
Right.
So creativity allows us to adapt as fractals would adapt. Yeah.
And I feel like the practice of creativity, this is what I'm going to say in our relationship with the external world. And this is what I was processing with my wife last night, because I had these wild ideas about what we can do with this creator sovereignty cohort. And she was like, maybe you should just do it once, see how it goes, and then like try implementing slowly these creative ideas. And I'm like, I hear you, and I know that that's what makes sense. But to be real, what I'm really trying to do here is live from my purest creative essence and trust in it. So it's like, as long as I'm putting the energy towards structuring it, not quite planning it, but knowing what it's supposed to be, slowly molding and forming it, then suddenly we're live and it becomes something that if I didn't trust in my creative foundation, like the fundamental part of me that creates the reality I live in, if I didn't trust in that, then it can't happen. It wouldn't happen. Like last week before we went live, there was a lot going on for me here and a lot to process. But we did it. There were failures. Felt like a complete success in my book. And we all we left here. We went to celebrate at the beach. And yeah, I had to edit a lot to get the podcast version sounding decent. But point is trusting in you tapping into that creative flow that only you can tap into. And you have to be intuitive. You have to trust your gut. Your subconscious knows where it's going and what it leads to. And in my opinion, based on my experience, the more I think about it, the more I try to plan it, the more I try to understand it before it's happening, or before it's already happened rather, then it doesn't succeed. I mean, it doesn't accomplish the goals to the point that they could be accomplished. And so just trusting in, like surfing, right? Just ride that wave until it's over. And then like gracefully to spark.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It goes back into channeling all that information, like you're kind of visualizing all this information coming down that becomes you, that you can show the world, this is who I am, this is what I can do. And all that is very solidifying to be in this body and to be to feel like you have that sovereign power over your world. If you're constantly doing something for other people and not really being able to express yourself, you kind of losing a part of yourself, and you're not really going to feel embodied and then feel empowered. And just doing these little bits of work, whether it's yoga, whether it's walking around, whether it's expressing your creative potential, is going to make you feel more alive and embodied in this reality. And that in itself is going to feel empowering, for what we want to accomplish and what we want to help build in the world around us. But if we're constantly doing something for somebody else and not expressing our creative potential, we're just going to get stifled. Yeah. We're going to get depressed. It's just natural.
Yeah, I feel like that really taps into the significance of bringing creativity actively into our relationships with others. And we've talked about like the rigidity piece, right? And we just get in these patterns, and there's this importance of openness that we need to have to be creative. And we need that in our relationships too. And it's like relationships break down when we just get stuck in these rigid patterns, and relationships flourish and expand when we can be open and creative in even just like pausing, like you were talking about, Stefano, like bringing in that allowance for yourself to feel your emotions and to let those tears flow as you're doing the dishes. Like if we can bring that kind of shift into our relationships with people, right, where we normally might be protected or closed off, and we bring that openness, we are willing to be vulnerable. We're willing to share more of ourselves, releasing shame, like you were talking about on the beach. This allows us to expand our relationships. And if we're not engaging in creativity for bettering our relationships in the world, then I would also say, what's the point? If I'm not satisfied by my creativity, what's the point? But also if we're not like improving our relationships, because I really feel like relationships are at the core of what this existence is all about. Like we're in relationship with everything, our relationships together as humans, our relationship to the earth, our relationship to culture. I love that you're like Hawaii. That's like how we say it here. That's how the Kanaka say it. That's a relational thing you did, right? To make sure to put that out there. Relationships are everything. So really bringing that openness and creativity to our relationships is key for the earth and for humanity.
Creativity in relationships. I get stuck. I get in moods, right? I get angry, but I get angry about stupid stuff all the time. When I get angry, man, I need to call on my creativity. When I feel stuck and shut down because I've been in like a monotony rut, that's tough. It's time to call in creativity when I'm taking time to spend with my kid, right? Having the emotional juice to be really present and playful. How do I use creativity in those moments? Let's see here. So I go back to breathing. I go back to remembering just how important relationships are and why I'm doing all this. I go back to, I do, sometimes I make funny faces, just like to myself, and I'll just like play through a different bunch of faces, try to scramble my pattern. What else do I do? There's something here. It's
I'm going to chime in for a second.
Go.
Making faces and being weird.
Exactly. I was thinking about you as a kid at the grocery store. Is that kind of like, whoa, off the wall moment.
I have this thing where like I used to do like a Snapchat story every morning, long time ago, and I would like just tell a story. I'd just be on a walk, I'd go on a hike every morning, and I would just like pretend I'm being chased by a monster or something, because you could put like doggy ears on your face or whatever. So I would do different shots, and I'd go, oh, the nice little boys walking in the street. Oh, there's a monster in the bushes, and it was always so much fun. And like 100 people saw it or whatever. But like, I've always had this thing where once I'm like in that flow state of the creativity, I've just got some voices and I've got characters that want to come
go-tos. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And one of those is the podcast announcer voice that I keep wondering if he needs to show up on the show. But the reason I bring it up is because that's like the relationship that I'm creating with the world through this podcast is like, okay, it's me, it's that, but there's this podcast announcer voice that wants to come out. Right. And so I'm just wondering, is this just funny for me in the bathroom, or is this like something to play on and become like, a bit more entertaining?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I have, let's see. Yeah. Okay. So there's creating magic moments and like choosing to step into that. And then but first I'm half Colombian. So I have 12 aunts on my mom's side. She had 12 sisters, right? 1950s on the farm on Colombia. That's what you did. You had a bunch of kids. Hopefully they were mostly males so that they could clean the pigs and all that stuff, but they were mostly females. So I have okay, happy family, get together. We're going to take a picture. Stefano, pay attention. Don't blink, Stefano. Right. So I have like one of those. Those are really helpful, Jordan. Thanks for mentioning that. But yeah, just kind of like, and you know what, this kind of photography kind of helped me with this, is like, there's energy in each of the moments that kind of want to come through, and to just listen. It goes, I guess maybe do less and listen for it, look for the magic. And yeah, I think that would be my 2 cents on that, is like, sometimes Cosimo just needs someone to listen to him, just look at him for like a good 15 minutes to like, oh, my words really do matter. And whoa, I can craft stories and
feel accepted.
Yeah. So, and that won't show up, that obvious thing, right? Blaring through his mouth, please listen to me. It won't show up if I'm not listening for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
It sounds like the attitude is also very playful too, and that it goes back to being creative through play. It's like when we learn something, we can do it very repetitively, but if it's not done in a playful way, it take forever. But something that we learn through play or just playing around with ourselves, we get to understand the information that much quicker because it's more fun for us. So just like you having that kind of attitude, and then that goes back to attitude, because attitude is everything too. And just the way we see things, like I can talk about doing dishes right now for my life because I've been nursing a fractured wrist for, over a year, where dishes were painful. Now I can actually do dishes that's not painful. It's exciting. It's like, oh my gosh, I can do dishes again. But if you extrapolate that to anything else in your life and seeing how difficult it is for a lot of people to do things, and just seeing how you can do it, that's liberating in itself too. It's not drudgery anymore. It's not, oh, I got to do it. Oh, I get to do it. I get to do this. And so that is really empowering as well, and how it can affect our attitude, can affect all our relationships just naturally. When we have a good attitude about things, people are going to treat us differently. We're going to treat them differently. It's a better situation when we are positive about things, and channeling that creativity just helps bring all that about.
Yeah, it's the old adage. It's like one of the first rules of the yogi is don't take yourself too seriously.
Yeah.
Like if you're taking yourself too seriously, then like, what's the point?
Yeah.
If every little thing has to be. Now, that said, to get by in this world, sometimes you do have to package yourself in a certain way. Mm-hmm. And that's just the reality. But that said, you can still do that right and still be lighthearted about your failures, your successes, the hits and the misses, and all the different things that come your way. So this is great. I feel like we're in a sauna in here. This is Hawaii, and that fan is doing absolutely nothing. The beach is calling. We have a special sign off today. Alicia is going to play a special song for us, and maybe you could introduce your musicianship in this song while the producer gets up and sets up the show.
Okay.
You can sit there.
Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna take this pillow though.
Yeah.
Okay, so this song is a expression of me in my creativity. There's actually a great story that comes with this song where almost 3 years ago now, right after I had moved to Big Island, it was the Leo new moon, and I was going through some things. I was living on Kalapana, like on the lava, and that was a whole wild experience, very transformative. And I had a mentoring session with my mentor at the time, and I was just really like struggling with some like heavy blocks emotionally and mentally. And he was like, "Why don't you create a self-love ceremony?" And just really devote like some time and space to you with you and caring and loving for you. And I was like, this is a great idea. I'm going to do that. So I did that, and I created space where I like kind of got myself like adorned, and I like had music on, and I was just dancing and moving and crying and sounding and just like in my freedom of expression. I kicked my partner out. I was like, you need to go away now. I need this space for myself. So I was alone, and I'd had these chords and this melody that I had been like working with for a little while. And I was like, well, definitely a part of my self-love ceremony has to be about creating space for me to be in my musical expression, because that is a big part of my heart and my soul and my joy. And definitely my love and my love of myself being in that. So I created some space for that. And this song just like, it just like channeled through like 90% of it complete. And then on that rest of the time of living out on the lava, I would go stand on the lava with my guitar, the wind, you know, all like the fiery, strong elements of being on the lava. And I would just jam out and sing loud. And it was so good. That's the story of how this song came to be. And it is another anthem to help us on our journey that we're all flowing through in this wild world right now. So this song is called Regal Lions. In times like this, global crisis, you know we were made for this. It's why we incarnated in human skins to begin again. Souls vibrating in the remembrance that the spirit within us is the truth of who we are. 'Cause we're galactic,
Thank you for joining us, everyone. You got me, Alicia. I'm tearing up over here. Thank you, everyone. Check it out on podcast apps, Sovereign States of Mind. See you next week.
Thank you very much for listening. This podcast is available on all major apps. Please head over and follow there. And if you really like it, leaving a quick review and 5 stars is super helpful, especially on Apple Podcasts. SovereignStatesOfMind.com is a place you can put in your email to receive things to your inbox every week. These are updates, these are blog posts, anything related to this podcast and the theme of developing sovereign states of mind. SovereignStatesOfMind.com. You can also support the show there by becoming a monthly patron. My name is Jordan Urbs. You can find me on Twitter as Jordan Urbs, JordanUrbs. And I look forward to interacting with you and hearing a bit about your journey. If you're interested in coming on this podcast, don't hesitate to be in touch. Much love. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Sovereign States of Mind.